Good morning, everybody. Dr. Zach Long, Doctor of Physical Therapy, lead faculty for the Institute of Clinical Excellence's Fitness Athlete Division here. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about some simple tips that you can give CrossFitters that are not only going to help them possibly stay a little bit healthier, but going to help them perform better. And this is something that we're really passionate about inside of the Fitness Athlete Division. We believe that physical therapists have some unique skill sets, and when we really learn how to analyze the movements performed by fitness athletes, we can do a lot of things differently that are going to help these athletes perform better. And we're going to see some things that a lot of times their CrossFit coaches don't have the opportunity to see. And a lot of times that's because either the CrossFit coach just doesn't have the knowledge of some of these things that we discuss in the fitness athlete division, or because that coach is in a class of anywhere from 10 to 20 athletes at a time, and they just don't have as much time as we do to make these individualized coaching corrections or individualized selections. So we as physical therapists are in a great opportunity to help these CrossFit athletes not only get back to doing the sports that they want to do when they're hurt, but to help them long-term perform better. And if you're the type of physical therapist that can not only help these athletes move better and get back to doing what they want to do, but you can also help them perform better, then they're going to absolutely love you. Because honestly, they care a little bit more about their performance than they do about staying healthy. A lot of times, those are the buzzwords that's going to click with them more. So they're just going to think incredibly highly of you if you're somebody that can give them these individualized performance feedback, things that are going to help them out long term. So let's dive into 7 different simple tips that we have that we quite commonly use to help out fitness athletes. And these are things that myself, Mitch, and Alan all contributed to this list. So number 1 on the list is tempo work. And so with CrossFit and Olympic weightlifting, so being heavily based on the clean and the snatch, we see a lot of athletes that only perform the eccentric and concentric portions of the movements as fast as possible. And while that is going to be more specific to the events that they want to do, when you combine that with the fact that in their Metcons, they're also always going fast, they're always bouncing out of the bottom of the hole in their squats, etc., we feel that a lot of times they miss out on the positive benefits of some slow tempo work, specifically really focusing on that slow eccentric portion of the lifts. We know from some research that tendons tend to respond favorably to that slow loading. And so I think a lot of times having an athlete do 1 or 2 mesocycles during the course of a year, so 1 or 2 months of training essentially, where they're doing some slow eccentric work can be great for them to help build their tendons up a little bit. Slowing down and doing a little bit more eccentric work, more time under tension, can be great for hypertrophy if that's somebody's goal. Slow eccentrics and even isometric contractions down in the bottom position of a squat, for example, are also really great to get individuals understanding how they move better, slowing things down and working on positional control a little bit more, which is going to be simple tip number 2, having them do positional drills. So something we talk about a lot in all of our courses is Olympic lifting technique and analyzing the Olympic lifts. And that's something that the Olympic lifts are highly technical movements. And so a lot of CrossFit athletes don't have incredibly good technique with that. And they want to continue to work on improving their numbers, how much weight they can lift in the clean and jerk and in the snatch. But their technique is usually a bigger limiter of their performance than their actual strength is. And so the Olympic lifts are this really cool balance between having strength and technical proficiency in the movements. And that balance isn't there in CrossFitters most of the time. So most of the time, they need to just get better at their technique more so than anything else. So I will quite often encourage these athletes to do a lot of positional work. So if I'm looking at their snatch and I'm noticing that they're doing, they're not fully hitting triple extension at the end of that second pull, then that's somebody that I'm going to really encourage to start spending some more time working from the high hang position. Or I'm going to write them some complexes where they go from high hang to low hang to the floor so that they're continually working on hitting the proper positions there. It can also be something as simple as encouraging them to do partial range of motion lifts. So maybe their deadlift's been stuck somewhere for a while. Maybe they can pull a really heavy weight from the floor to about their knee level, but then they can't get it past that. So maybe we then encourage that athlete to start doing some heavy rack pulls, where they're actually starting just below that point where they get stuck and lifting the bar off from there and then slowly returning it back down to the bottom. Because those partial range of motions, spending more time under tension in that sticking point of the lift for them can be really great to help them get over the hurdle of where they're lacking some strength there. Number 3 is going to be just some simple accessory programming. So I've got a guy coming in right now. looking at his shoulder, actually. And in treating his shoulder, I'm looking at his overhead squat, and I had him bring in some videos of his overhead squat and his front squat. And I saw that, as he's coming out of the bottom of the squat, he always tends to shoot his hips up a little bit faster than his chest rises. And to me, a lot of times that's going to indicate somebody that has some weakness in their quads compared to their hips or low back. That's what we typically would call a good morning squat pattern. And so for him, even though I'm treating his shoulder, I was able to suggest that he start doing some accessory quad work in his programming to try to balance out his squat. So that's something that's really easy for us to do. And again, his CrossFit coaches, he actually goes to a really good CrossFit gym. I think highly of the coaching that's there. But again, they have 10 to 15 athletes in every class. They don't have the time to really break this out on an individual case-by-case basis, and it's something that can be really simple for us to pick out on them. So number 4 is going to be some individualized mobility work. This is a big one. This is one that I think a lot of times you can market as a cash-based service to athletes. With the CrossFit Open coming up, I think a lot of people could take advantage of this and start running some ads on your social media platforms or through gyms that where you're going to start programming individualized mobility work for people to get them ready for the CrossFit Open. The CrossFit Open is a big deal for a lot of CrossFit gyms, so this is a great opportunity for people to come up with different cash-based options to help individuals get ready for the Open. But with individualized mobility work, there's obviously a ton of different mobility exercises and mobility resources out there. Seems like everybody, their brother is now on online posting out videos of different mobility exercises. So there's no shortage of options for what to use. There's no shortage of tools. The problem that I run into so often with CrossFit athletes is they're using the wrong tool. They're stretching the wrong thing. So for example, if they're squatting and their hips feel tight, they're doing the pigeon stretch. And they're doing that because it's what they see when they search Google or Instagram or YouTube for hip tightness stretches for the squat. They see the pigeon stretch. Well, what if their hip is tight or feels tight because their ankles are actually tight? And so because they have poor ankle mobility, they're having to go through more hip flexion in their squat, and that leads to them hitting in range of their hip socket. And so maybe their hips aren't tight at all, maybe it's their ankles. Or maybe they're stretching hip external rotation, but they have a ton of external rotation, but they don't have a lot of internal rotation. And we open up that internal rotation a little bit, and all of a sudden their hip feels great, and it doesn't require them stretching it every day because they actually kind of just fix the joint overall there. So individualized mobility work is a huge one where we can really make a huge impact by getting people actually working on the right stuff and to stop spinning their wheels by guessing at what they need to be working on. Number 5, education on training volume. So much of CrossFit related injuries comes down to poor training volume and lack of knowledge. And people just think that they can, they can go do the class where they do a strength and a conditioning portion, and then they can go do some accessory Olympic weightlifting, and they have a side Olympic weightlifting coach. They also have a side gymnastics coach. And they've got 2 kids at home and a full-time job, and they're just hammering away at tons of volume when they have tons of other life stressors. They're training like they're a professional CrossFit athlete when they're not. And so we can educate them on the research around training volume, on maximal recoverable volume, on heart rate variability, and how they can start looking at their heart rate variability to help them make better training decisions. A lot of different things that we've talked about previously on the PT on Ice Daily Show, and we talk about inside of our fitness athlete courses there on training volume. Number 6 is not skipping aerobic capacity days. I'm going to raise my hand here on this one because this is, this is what I want to do myself. But aerobic capacity is kind of the foundation of CrossFit performance. And if you go to the CrossFit Level 1 hand guide, it's kind of the base of their pyramid after nutrition is aerobic conditioning and having this good aerobic base. And so many CrossFit athletes are more interested in going and improving their 1 rep snatch or their 5 rep max deadlift. And when that workout shows up on their whiteboard that says, today we're going to go run a 5K, or today we're going to go, do a 10,000 meter row, whatever it is, there's going to be a huge dip down in the number of attendees because that stuff is more boring. But those aerobic capacity days are going to do a lot long-term for those individuals, being able to tolerate higher workloads on their week-to-week basis, improving, their shorter duration workouts as well, and improving their recovery. So it's something that athletes really need to get into more. If that's something you want to dive into a little bit deeper, there's an article on my website, thebarbellphysio.com, on development of aerobic capacity for the CrossFit athlete, written by my friend Josh Jeffrey of the Better Faster podcast and Vertex PT. Point number 7 is just simply working on moving better. So a lot of athletes want to improve their strength, want to improve their performance, want to improve their Fran time, but so often they need to just spend a little bit of time working on their movement mechanics. And there's nothing wrong with going into the gym, 4 or 5 days a week for your CrossFit workout and having an athlete go in 1 or 2 of those days and say, today I'm not going to go for a soul crushing workout. Today I'm going to move consistently and make sure that through every rep that I do, I'm moving with good technical proficiency. In fact, when I'm CrossFitting heavily, if I'm going to the gym 5 days a week, I'm typically hitting that Metcon really hard 4 days a week. And I've kind of found for myself that if I hit it harder than, if I go more than 4 hard days a week, that's when I kind of get trashed. And the next week I'm not able to perform really well. So if I go in a 5th day, then that 5th day I'm just working on maintaining a consistent pace. It's more than active recovery, but it's me really focused on moving at a consistent pace with really sound technique. And that's something that I think a lot of CrossFitters would benefit from, not only just spending more time in their warm-up or on their off days working on their squat positioning or their overhead positioning or just their overall movement control, but also doing that in a little bit of a tired environment where we're not full into a 10 out of 10 RPE CrossFit workout. Maybe we're going at it at a 6 out of 10 and just, again, really focused on our movement control, positioning, and moving soundly. So there you have it, 7 tips to really easily help CrossFit athletes move and perform better. We in the fitness athlete division feel really passionate that if you can give tips like this to CrossFitters, that they're going to really respect you as somebody that's more than just a standard physical therapist that has a much wider skill set. They're going to go and tell all their friends that you're the person that they need to see. If you want to learn more about these tips or analyzing the lifts or training load management like we talked about here, a number of different options we have inside the Institute of Clinical Excellence. We have our Essential Foundations course, which is an 8-week online course by Mitch and Alan that's starting in January. You can register for that on PT on Ice. Mitch and I are also teaching our Advanced Concepts in the Clinical Management of the Fitness Athlete course starting in January. And that also starts in January. That's 100% online. And then we're doing 2 live courses in January. On January 12th and 13th, I'll be teaching in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Mitch will be teaching in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So I hope y'all check out those courses. As always, thanks for tuning in. Have a great day and enjoy the rest of your holiday time with your family.